Hey folks, and welcome. The last four within our Season 2 dungeon installment are all Dragonflight dungeons. This means that they're being run currently in 5-man stacks, because unfortunately my Warlock couldn't solo them. So these runs are going to be shorter, primarily because the tanks were on a mission to get these done as fast as possible. So hopefully you'll forgive me, but let's get into the speed run of Halls of Infusion. So, first thing to note, I am actually playing my baby Warlock. I have two Warlocks now on the agenda. I have Oramis main, who is obviously geared out the ass, and then you have Uramis, the undead Warlock, who currently is a baby spec. I'm currently playing around with an iteration of the Cataclysm and Channel Demon Fire build, mainly for the fun of it, but that is the only differences you're going to see visually. Going into Halls of Infusion itself, we have a few mobs that we need to be wary of. The Primal Geomancers, they're a little bit irritating because they do dance around the place and will leap onto ranged. Try to be stacked if you can. Don't be out in China like I am. Next port of call is the Containment Apparatus. They are going to be a pain. They have two casts. One of them is Containment Beam, and the other one is Expulse. And Containment Beam is just a damage dealing channel, essentially. You can kick it if you have the kicks to spare, but Expulse is the main one. The reason for this is because if you don't kick Expulse, it will detonate like that, as you just saw on screen. So that's kind of your main two for this. So the Geomancers do also apply Earth Shield to things, makes them a little bit tanky, but you can purge them. Blood Elves, Demon Hunters, Fell Hunter pets, the like. Easy enough to do. So wouldn't worry too much. But again, just don't do what I've done positionally there. I should be closer up. Unfortunately, with tanks that are extremely mobile like this, it kind of derailed my plan a little for the dungeon, but that won't stop us. So this next pack has a couple of Geomancers, Defenders, and obviously the Containment Apparatus. It has two of them this time, so you do need to get them on lockdown. But as you can see, they fall over pretty quickly. They are going to be very bursty targets, and then you're kind of just going to cleave everything else with the Refty Defenders and the Containment Apparatus for this final pack just falling over. The Refty Apparatus, or the Refty Defenders, sorry. Refty Apparatus, Jesus, it's getting late. The Defenders do a channeled flurry of attacks, so if you're a melee DPS, just make sure you're stood behind them. Now, moving on to the first boss, the Watcher, Iridius. He is fairly straightforward and quite simple. He has a few abilities. The main part of it is the fact that this boss has an intermission phase that will get more chaotic the longer it lasts, but it's easy enough to deal with. The other ability that he has is a AoE that he puts down on the floor. Basically, just make sure that you stack on the boss to make sure that he's not in the AoE. So what you'll do is you'll basically move him around. You don't see it in this fight, because unfortunately even my baby Warlock does a considerable amount of single target damage for his gear. So we kind of just shredded the boss. Now, what you saw in the middle there with the golden circles is during the intermission phase, the boss will spawn sparks. Now, these sparks need to be dragged onto the boss and then killed. They'll then have the glowing yellow circle, and that circle will delete a charge of the boss's shield. You need 3 of them at this difficulty. On Mythic Plus, I believe it might be 4, but could be wrong. Either which way, drag the orbs underneath the boss, kill them, root them, hold them in place, stun them as well to make sure that the boss is in them when the cast goes off, and then you'll transition back into the damage phase. Rinse and repeat. One thing to note for herbalists in this dungeon, because remember, Dragonflight does have some abilities here and things, is after the boss, herbalists can pick up a buff from the infused mushroom that dispels poisons every 5 seconds, which then leads very well into these frogs that we're about to see. These frogs are a bit of a pain in the ass. Curious Swoglets. They apply a poison debuff to you when they melee attack. If this debuff stacks up to 10 times, you will die, as you're about to watch happen to our Druid in a moment. So Druid doesn't know what's happening. Oh, sorry, no, it was one of our Evokers. Evoker didn't know what was happening, stood still, and got slapped for it. Stuns, fears, roots, snares, all of those abilities will help you with these froglings. Now, the Dazzling Dragonflies, not too much to say about it, just make sure you kick Dazzle. Dazzle is a disoriented ability. Just make sure it's dealt with. It's the only thing you need to worry about. These Zealots aren't particularly dangerous. They're just a melee mob, and the fact that they are skulking means they are stealthed, so be wary of them. If only because you might intend to pull 2 mobs and end up with 3 or more. Now this next one with the Primalist Shock Troopers and the Zealots, you can see that we have 2 Skulking Zealots and 3 Shockers. Shockers just have elemental focus, kick the cast, deal damage. They will fall over fairly quickly as this pack isn't overly dangerous. We do, however, come to the next pack. The Flamecaller Ami and Squallcaller Syraz. These 2 overlap and can be quite nasty. One of them has a root and the other one has an AoE ability. Pyretic Burst, you want to kick, and Zephyr's Call just summons small Zeppheling adds. These are easy enough to burst down and will add to your AoE. You can see there that one of the benefits of having something like Channel Demon Fire, we're going to have some very nice bursty moments. You can see that overlap with the root and the AoE there, but you could kick that large AoE ability. That is just a spike. Think Glacial Spike from Frost Mages, just with an AoE component. All in all, manage the kicks, manage the adds, easy enough. Going on to this boss then, the Gulping Goliath. So, you need essentially, there's 2 elements of this. You see all those frogs spawning, you need to manage them. Ideally want a poison dispel, however, the boss itself has a mechanic called Gulp, and it will swallow something in front of it. You can do this to the frogs and have the frogs be eaten up. This limits how much poison is going out, but does mean that you need a poison dispel on your tank, otherwise your tank is going to eat dirt very quickly, especially on higher difficulties when the boss doesn't fold as fast. But if you don't have anyone to stand in front of Gulp, the boss will enrage, so do be wary of that. Now, we have a mix of Glacial Proto-Dragons, which do a frontal cone in Deep Chill. You have the Primalist Ice Callers, Earth Shakers, and Gale Slingers. These abilities do a mix of rooting you in place and AoE damage, whether it be in a cone or simple casts. You are going to have to be wary of them, but Wind Buffer is the one that you want to stop. As you're about to see, I am going to get caught by a Wind Buffer and get stunned for a while. So something that you need to be wary of. We're letting a few casts go off. We're getting the rotation through. Thunderstorm's about to go off. And you can see that I'm now stuck in a stun. So you just need to be wary of this and get everything out. But all in all, relatively easy pack. You just need to manage key kicks. You can see there that that's a large AoE ability, but you can bait that out and just take the Gale Slinger elsewhere. You have the Ice Caller doing Ice Shards, and again, this final pack is nothing that you haven't already faced. Halls of Infusion is going to be a very simple dungeon once you get the swing of it. You have 1 or 2 packs where you're learning something new, and then you have a repeat of those packs until the next boss. You're then introduced to another 1 or 2 slow packs to learn something, and then again that's put into practice for the next boss. With the exception of this one, this particular boss has a few mechanics. For anyone that's done Kurog Mythic or Kurog on any difficulty, you're going to recognize the ice rings for the earthen ring as part of that fight. The other element of this is you can see these glacial stalagmites, or these ice cubes, around the room in various states of decay. This one that we're stood behind has a crack in it. You need to use these to line of sight the ability Wind Chill. or hailstorm, sorry. And each icicle can, if it's undamaged, like the one directly in front of me now, can take 2 hits. Once it's taken its first hit, it will then show cracks and signs of damage. That means it can then take 1 more. Make sure you're stood behind them during hailstorm, otherwise you will get domed, so do be wary of that. Other than that, the boss is fairly simple, and just send the cyclones and any damage away from the icicles. Moving on to this bit. Now, this is going to be a gauntlet. The reason for this gauntlet is because these tidal pools that you can see are being sent down will push you back or knock you off the platform. If you're knocked off, you have to start from the beginning again. Now, demon hunters, warriors, and utilizing a warlock gateway can do a relatively interesting cheese with this. And one method that you will see will be the utilization of a gateway far down, and then you'll see demon hunters either double jumping or fell leaping their way down the pack, or you'll see warriors with heroic leap, tanks with charger, thing like that, getting all the ads and then deliberately falling off the platform to be brought back to us. Because again, these proto-dragons don't really do a lot. The aqua rages, they can enrage and do damage. The boiling rages, you can see there, you just kick it. Easy enough to manage, or you de-enrage it. And then you move on finally to the final named mob of the dungeon, which kind of just rinses and repeats these abilities. So you have Infuser Saria, and she will summon an ad and summon a barrier. Kick the barrier, and then you have Inundate, which goes off and is an uninterruptible cast. You then have the Flood as well, which is a knockback as well. Aqua Rager, that is just a poor little ad that we get to ignore, and we get onto the Primal Tsunami. Now, the gauntlet that we've just done is part of the fight on Mythic Plus difficulties. You will be launched in a direction, and you will be sent back. During that intermission, when you're launched and running back, there will be ads that you then have to kick. They are channeling onto the boss. You can't miss them. They're at the 4 corners of the room. Unfortunately, you don't really see it on heroic difficulty, but it is there. And just make sure that you avoid the blue shit on the ground. If you don't, like I didn't there, you take a reasonable amount of damage. On high difficulties, it will kill you. However, that brings us to the end of our crash course. Hopefully it's helped you guys, and I will see you all in the next one. Take care.